One of the members of the channel reached out to me and said, I really want to push up on Sorare into different divisions. I just don't know where to put my money or who to buy. Can you help me out? Now, this isn't something I normally do, but as he was one of the first people to join my memberships, I thought I'm going to do him a whole video reviewing his gallery and where I would go with his gallery. If you find this concept interesting, let me know down below and I might continue it. Looking at the gallery valuation then, it's worth about £3,000 and he has a 5% reward winning lineups. I probably don't think that's high enough for that sort of gallery valuation, but we do have to include the point it's only worth £1,000 on the football side of things. And looking at the gallery, you know, it looks like he's got a strong MLS or, you know, let's say off-season contingent, you know, John McCarthy being the bulk of the entire gallery for sure. And then he's got some other players thrown in there. He's playing across the limited and the rare division. There's no super rares here. In terms of the limited division then, it doesn't look to have much consistency. You know, we've got Champion Europe players, we've got second division players, we've got Japanese players. You know, there is a real mix of players, and I think that's quite an issue that I see a lot of Sorare players get into. They have no niche, they're just firing on all cylinders, and I think that's one of the reasons you could have like a low reward winning percentage, because you don't specialize in any league. You don't know when someone's injured who's going to get the replacement. So starting off then, that is an area I'd really focus on. And he reached out to me and was like, well, who are the best MLS cards to buy? And I was like, why would you buy MLS cards at this point? You know, for me, this is going to be their peak or very close to their peak. If you look at the 1 year graph of one of the top cards here for this guy's gallery, John McCarthy, you know, I don't know his situation. I assume he wasn't a starter, now is a starter, but it's a straight line up. And the Sorare market has been tanking recently. So to have a player that's done that and want to like buy into that, I know it feels right, but it's probably completely the wrong situation to go with. So I would actually focus on European cards. And for me, it's Challenge Europe or Champion Europe. And the key to that really comes over the transfer window, because Challenge Europe players, if they make a good move to a similar Challenge Europe division, they can absolutely fly. If they move to the Champion Europe division, they can absolutely die. And, you know, that comes down to your own knowledge. You know, I support Celtic, so a couple of players at my club I could almost guarantee are going to stay, and there'll be one or two that I can guarantee are going to leave. But as a newcomer, looking at Sorare data, looking at stats, you won't be able to pick that up. So this depends on your own knowledge, but what I've done in this scenario is go the risk reduced route, which is Champion Europe, because a lot of Champion Europe players, it's hard for them to get moves. If they go down to a Challenge Europe club, they generally perform better. Of course, they can move to a club where they're a sub, but so can every other player on the game. So essentially, step one of this is to locate your niche, and my niche is in Champion Europe. I don't know what his niche is going to be in. You know, he's looking to me for suggestions. So I'm going to build into Champion Europe. It's the divisions I know the most about. Alternatively, if you pick Challenge Europe, that's absolutely fine. Maybe take 20-30% off the cost of these players and do exactly the same thing. Just be very careful that you're not picking up a top talent that is performed so well, he's going to move to a different club. Let's look at some of these names I picked up then. Starting at the very bottom, we've got Hugo Lloris, £164. And to be honest, that's pretty high. I saw him sold for £120. Now, obviously, I own Lloris, and this might be a bit biased, but I just don't understand how he can be so cheap. He's probably never going to play for Tottenham again. He's definitely not playing again this season. They're ruled out. But surely he's probably going to get a move back to France. You know, it's his home nation. He's really not cut it in the Premier League this last season. You are gambling at this point, right? You are gambling on him making a move, and that's, you know, never something you want to do, which is why you'll see I've got two other goalkeepers in the mix that are more nailed. But he just seemed a bit low for me. So a good player you can take a punt on. Again, leading into the Tottenham Hotspurs kind of trend here, Emil Forsberg was an absolute killer on the platform. Tottenham have been playing absolutely awful recently, and his price has gone down. But he's still a really consistent high scorer, someone I have on a short list. Marcus Forvan then, you know, he's someone that's, you know, always looking to make a big move. This summer seems like the one where he's going to make a move. At that price, I think he's got a lot of upside. You can even sell into summer hype. Blaswich and Gulaski, they come together as like a pair here. So I'm pretty sure Gulaski will get the starting spot back when he's fit and ready, which will be, I predict, the start of next season, but I'm not keeping up with his injury. And then if not, that'll probably be Blaswich. Now, there is a risk of Van der Voort moving because Leipzig already own him, but more realistically, it's probably going to be next season. So why I like those two as a combination, you essentially get two goalkeepers for the price of one. Because for a guaranteed nailed Champion Europe goalkeeper, £400 would be budget. So the fact you can get two, one of them can make a move, you know, there's so many better upsides than that. And Leipzig are pretty strong defensively. Moving on then, we've got Crepin Diada as a forward. I mean, £92 for a forward that are pretty dominant, for a team that are pretty dominant in their league. You know, he plays most of the games. You know, Monaco typically are pretty good, although recently they've been very poor in form. I think that's a good value pickup. Forwards are hard to come by. I would take a shot on him. Benjamin Borijard, I'm sure you'll know better than me. He's been out for so long now, a long-term injury, but when he's not, he absolutely smashes the SO5 scoring system. You know, a guaranteed pickup for me. Like, I think he'd be fantastic. Now, Paulo Dybala, obviously one very close to my heart. I absolutely love this guy. He's a killer on the matrix. He's on penalties. He's on free kicks. He is the premium guy. In your gallery, I think you want one premium guy that you can rely on and you can say, he's my captain every week. Go do it. Whatever happens to you, I will go with the scores. If you perform well, I'm going to be high on the leaderboard. You perform badly, I'm going to be low. Dybala is that man for me. This is someone that you need to come up with yourself. You really need to trust them, whether that be a Griezmann, a Dybala. I really don't care who you go with, but, you know, premium player that you believe in, that you think, yeah, ride or die with this guy, captain every week. I think when you're competing on a budget, and you will be competing on a budget in the rare and rare pro division in Champion Europe, because if you haven't got a Kimmich or a Messi or a Neymar, you are going to be on a budget because those guys are so much more expensive. But I still think it's possible. Achraf Hakimi, you know, because he's aging out and he's going to be 24, which means he can't play in under 23s, he's going for a lot cheaper than I think he should be. Let's keep in mind how good he is. Let's keep in mind the league he plays in and how dominant PSG will be. You can predict his scores because he's a wing back and, you know, like against lower opposition, he's going to be in the final third, getting attack and actions more. Absolutely love it. Benjamin Hendricks, another card I own. Like, I just seems to have nailed down a right back spot in a premium club, but hasn't got a premium price. Willy Orban, very solid player that hasn't really been that solid of recently in the team, but there's been a lot of injuries, a lot of rotation at Leipzig. I think next season could be a really solid like player in that role and just go back to his old like 60 plus scores every game. When you're buying players, you don't want to buy them at the very peak of their scores. So I've gone for Conor Gallagher here. You know, another punt, but I feel like he could definitely make a move next season where he becomes nailed. Like under Lampard in these last couple of games, he's getting starting again, and he's just showing why he was brought to Chelsea, because he is an absolute killer. Very high risk, obviously. So, you know, don't take these players as players that you should definitely go and buy. These are just players I know about, I have on a short list, and I put together for this video. Hassam Aouar then, you know, looks like he's guaranteed to move on a free transfer to Rome. We don't know who else they're going to bring in or where he's going to play. There's a lot of question marks about him, but I've seen the talent in this guy. Like, I really think he's a top player. So moving to a club where he might get more minutes, yeah, seems like a no-brainer to me. Now you can mix and max with the players, but I'll say about £2,200 on rare would be a good starting budget here. Which is great because the funding that Schalke said he wants to put in is about £3,000. His gallery value just in football is about 996, so about £4,000 spending spree he could go on this summer. And that leaves us obviously the rare cost you've seen before, about £2,200. The key here, I think you should be trying to pick up some super rares as well. Obviously, you get the ones on the lower end because they're easier to pick up. So I've gone for Henriks, Aouar, and Diatta. I think, you know, if you do that, you can rotate them into Champion Europe Pro based on their fixtures and the other fixtures surrounding them. Champion Europe Rare Pro is obviously going to pay out so substantially better, but also has such a substantially higher points requirement. So if you think you're able to hit it, if you're confident in your players and their fixtures, obviously you enter them into that. Otherwise, you drop down Champion Europe. And in terms of their price, I've gone for 4x their rare. Realistically, that's 5x because their cost is included here. So I think 5x their super rare is attainable for most of them. And that would make your super rare cost just shy of £1,000, right? Leaving a total cost of £3,100. So we've left about £1,000 in the bank. And this, for example, would be how I line up my teams. If we're focusing on Champion Europe Pro, if they all had good fixtures, you know, Hakimi was going to be bombing down the wings, things like that. I did actually have Hakimi in there as a super rare. For now, we'll just put him in as a non-super rare. But yeah, if you did add him, it's an extra like £800, £700 in that region, which will put you max to your budget. But if you were to pick up, say, a Diaz super rare and drop him in, or an Orban super rare, you know, bring down the cost slightly. But essentially, what you would be able to do here is play Champion Europe Rare Pro, and go at them every week. And what people get carried away with is Champion Europe is far too competitive. You can't compete unless you have Kimmich or Messi. And they are so consistent, it is hard to compete, but they're so expensive where people actually forget the fact that these whales that, you know, have these cards essentially have to win every week or every other week with these cards, and that's not always possible. So if you can compete in a budget and hit 1 in 4 game weeks, you know, people don't think of Champion Europe like the thresholds, but if you afford a bit like Champion Europe thresholds, right, a tier 4 or a tier 5 would typically get you the cost of a threshold anyway. And then if you go above that, you get much higher upside because you've got Mbappe at the top of the pool, you've got Kimmich at the top of the pool. So when you're competing on a budget, especially in Champion Europe, think of it as if I hit 1 in 5 or 1 in 4, that's great. And then obviously you'll be looking at this and thinking, okay, well, I'm actually only on £3,100. What would you suggest with the other £800-900? Well, it's up to you what you want to do. Like I said, you can strengthen with a Hakimi Super Rare if you're really keen on Pro and all your players are playing well. Otherwise, you can go and find fodder. You know, cards that are 40, 30, £20. We've got so many of them now. You could probably build out 10, 12, 14 players and just fit them in here as a threshold grinding team. Now, it looks obviously in the initial team value that it looks like you're trying to do this on a budget in MLS. I think the only problem with this is that if you're competing with 5 or 6 players, you're really going to struggle. If you're trying to do it in MLS, I think their prices are at like close to peak. So unless you're consistently hitting it every week, your decrease in price is going to actually outweigh the thresholds that you get. So I think that's pretty much where I'd leave it. You know, whether it's Champion or Challenge Europe, focus on the divisions. Pick up a list of players that aren't performing at their peak. Not one of these players, except for Dybala, I'd say is performing at their peak. But like with Dybala, pick up someone you can rely on every week. You ride or die with them. And then be patient with your scores, right? You can't hit every week competing on a budget. It's just not possible. But when you do hit, you want to hit big. You want to be hitting those big scores. You want to be, you know, playing in your best divisions. And I think this is what lines you up for. On top of that, by playing in like 2 divisions that are essentially the same division, right? They're the same games every week. You're going to become more knowledgeable of the divisions. You're going to be able and watching games and finding value and be able to scout players that you think, right, this kid's going to be good in a couple of weeks. That will help you get better value. You can sell out of them, rotate into different players, all those different scenarios. This is essentially what I would do. It doesn't mean it's perfect. I just think it's a good strategy. So let me know if you like this. Schalke, let me know what you're going to do. Champion, Challenger, or maybe you're going to ignore me completely. But yeah, all the best to you. Cheers.